There we go. Welcome everybody, and particular welcome to Nia, Dee and Andrea from CCE, which is the Creative Culture Education, which is a group they've been running for about 15 years based around research-informed ways of working effectively. And today is all about leading with creativity, particularly in today's complex educational landscape, with a focus on leadership, creative thinking, systems innovation, and hopefully offering practical tools and a reflective space for people to be able to take something really tangible away. We've also welcomed Sarah Childs with us from the Creative Collaborative, which is down in Penryn. And I think it's your 5th year, Sarah, isn't it now, of working with the CCE. So it's lovely to have a really tried and tested practice joining us too. So I'm going to welcome Nia and hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Lucy. I will hand over to Sarah in a second too. But just to explain, actually, Sarah and I and Gary too have only just really properly been working together this year. But I have known Sarah since we started Creativity Collaboratives. So Sarah can talk a bit more about that, and where the link comes in that is because we at CCE, our head office, where he is at the moment, is up in the northeast in Newcastle, and so we were working with our own Northeast Creativity Collaborative. But as I say, Sarah can talk a bit more about that initiative. Our work at CCE, as Lucy says, we've been going since 2008. First of all, working heading up creative partnerships across England. If any of you were involved in that back in the day, it was a huge programme in its time that worked with most schools, I think, in England. And after we finished that programme, we then took our work and all the research and the expertise that we had, we took it globally. So our tagline, transforming education globally through creativity, is something that we live out every day. So we were lucky to work in and continue to work in countries such as Wales and Scotland, Australia, Pakistan. I've just got back from India 2 weeks ago. And in India, I'll tell you a bit more about that one in a second, because the focus of our work at the moment is particularly on leadership. Like I say, I'll come back to that in a second, but I just want to go back to before I came to CCE, because I was a recipient really of CCE's work. Before I joined CCE in 2021, I was heading up in Wales, a region as part of the Welsh Government and Arts Council of Wales programme, which was preparing for the new curriculum at the time. The new curriculum has been around a few years now in Wales, but is really thinking about how to put creativity at the heart of teaching and learning, and of schools, the culture of schools, the conditions in schools. So as a recipient of CCE who came to set that up with us, I worked in our own region with 150 schools. But then to go back before that, I was a teacher. I was a secondary school teacher and middle leader and a further education lecturer too. But most of my teaching career, 13 years of my career, was in Harrogate and in York. So I've been able to sort of work with teachers in this work through trying to understand where they're coming from. And as I say, more recently, the whole leadership focus of our work, which brings us full circle to how I met and worked with Sarah and Gary this year, because our key focus at the moment is leading for creative thinking, is how we can help system, school and teacher leaders to really support teaching and learning in the classroom. But more than just that, because we know from our work, if we're getting teachers to do this in the classroom, they need to feel supported by the culture that they're working with, even as so much as thinking about professional learning, thinking about the ecosystem. And we can talk more about this in the sessions as we go along. I'm going to leave it there for now. I'm going to hand over to Sarah to talk about her work.
Thank you. Lovely to see everyone. Nice to be back talking to everyone at CAPH, which is really exciting. My name's Sarah Childs. I'm based at Penryn College as an assistant head, particularly focused around teaching and learning and staff CPD and coaching. And for the we're in the 5th year, last 5 years have been one of the national pilots for the Arts Council's creativity collaboratives. The Penryn Creative Collaborative actually is with 1 secondary and 8 primaries, and I have spoken with CAPH before. We've actually conference a couple of years ago, we came down with Bill Lucas and we shared a little bit of where we'd begun that journey. The Creativity Collaborative is an Arts Council initiative off the back of a piece of research from the Durham Commission, just came out just before COVID actually, and one of the biggest recommendations was that schools in England don't really know what teaching for creativity looks like, and we therefore need to test and know more. And cleverly at the time, the Arts Council put 8 national pilots very cleverly positioned around the country. One up in the northeast, which has been working with the team and CCE. Down here in the southwest, we were really thrilled to be the southwest representative, working with Gary and the team at Real Ideas, but also partners across our area, working really closely with the University of Exeter, for example. We have particularly focused in on how does teaching for creativity better prepare young people for a modern workforce, whatever that might look like. And we have really looked at us creating and developing a really future-proofed curriculum that really inspires teaching and learning, not just in, you know, what we might consider as creative subjects, but across the curriculum, which has been important for us. Our current work in our last 2 years with the pilot has been particularly looking about how to develop some more equitable curriculum, focusing on the impact on young people, but particularly through the lens of disadvantage, which is really interesting for us down here, but also so much to share nationally and regionally as well. Along with Gary, one of our work over this year and last year is to really think about how we're sharing and networking other colleagues from across Cornwall and Devon and Plymouth who are just interested to know more. And so we're really thrilled to be doing this, and thanks to Lucy and the team from CAPH for the invites. So that's me.
Thank you, Sarah. We are going to do something together in a moment to get us thinking about this at a really kind of foundational level. But before we do, just a couple of things I want to make clear to begin with, that we believe that creativity exists in every subject. We've mentioned Arts Councils a couple of times. We do believe that creativity can be seen and heard and done across the curriculum, but it's not always obvious. And one of the things we want to do together within these sessions is talk about what creativity is and really test, you know, where we're coming from, what our assumptions might be. The other thing that we know for a fact is that creativity can be taught. It's not something that you're born with. It's not an innate talent. And when creativity is woven into every part of the school, it becomes just the way we do things around here. It aligns directly with the purpose of school itself. And that's what I want us to explore today, because this is, as I say, the kind of foundational piece before we jump into talking about creativity. It's going to be pacey. It doesn't mean that every session is going to be as pacey as this, but it just gives us an opportunity for you to meet each other and to talk about some thinking around what your ideas around the purpose of school is. So I'm going to ask Andrea or Dee to just put in the chat a link to a Canva whiteboard. When you see the link and you click on it, you will be asked to log in. You don't need to log in, just ignore it and just press continue, and you should be allowed to go straight onto the whiteboard. So if you try that now and see what happens, and at the same time I'm going to share my screen so that I can show you what I'd like you to be looking at. So and there's only 2 functions in this whole thing that really you're going to need to use. So I'm just going to stop for a moment, just checking that everybody can get into it. It's not asking you to log in or anything silly. As long as you can log in, just come back to this Teams screen with me, and hopefully you can see me sharing a screen. I've had the thumbs up from Sarah. If anyone else cannot get into the Canva, just put your thumb down and we can try and help. Okay, so as I'm sharing my screen, if you have a look where my cursor goes, there's this, you may have used Canva before, but just in case you haven't, there's the zooming in and zooming out button at the bottom here. Okay, so that's one function that you're going to need. You're going to need to see well, you're all going to be in one group anyway, so let's look at just group 1. And you've got these post-it notes, and if you double click on a post-it note, you should, as you can see on my blue post-it note there, be able to just type straight into it. And you can hopefully just grab it and move it about on the screen too. Okay, so those are the only functions that you're going to need. And in actual fact, not everybody is going to need to do this. If at least one person in the group can do it, it's just one person who can hopefully share their screen with everybody else. And then you'll be able to talk to that person and they can be doing the typing and the moving about. Okay, so what we're going to do, you're going to be talking in your group, in a breakout group together, about what the purpose of school is. What do you think the purpose of school is? Now, you may already have very clear ideas on this, so just discuss and see whether other people agree. Once you've, well, first of all, just take the time to introduce yourselves, because I'm assuming that you know each other, but you probably don't. So take the time to introduce yourselves first, then get into the discussion. And then you've got a bit of time to come up with 15 purposes of school. So there are 15 post-it notes. You just need to put 15 ideas on each separate post-it note, one idea on each separate post-it note. And that's all I want you to do to begin with. So once we'll be keeping an eye on you from this side of things. And once you've got your 15, we are going to slide in a second instruction. So there'll be something else for you to do after you've done that. And after that second instruction, there'll be one more thing for you to do too. So we're going to ask you to just work quite quickly through this. As I say, we'll just let you know how much time you've got left and ask you to move on when the time's finished. But just to reiterate, all you need to do to begin with is think about your 15 purposes of school, write them in one in each post-it note, and that's it. The colour coding and everything doesn't mean anything, so just ignore that. And if you're stuck, give us a shout, even if you're writing on the board, just saying help. We'll come in and make sure that we can come and save you. We've done this in Zoom loads of times. We haven't done this in Teams, and one of the habits, the way we talk about creativity, one of our habits is tolerating uncertainty, and we're just modelling that for you today.
Which I'm having one of those moments. So would you like me to assign everybody to one room?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Thanks,
okay.
Lucy.
I'm going to do that now then.
Share the screen so that we can see what we were doing. I wonder now, usually if we'd had more groups at this point, we'd be sharing our diamonds nines and we'd be looking at what the similarities are, what the differences are, what people notice, because it doesn't matter how many people we've done this with, people's diamonds nines tend to look very different, and that's the whole point of it. It's to open up discussion and debate, and which was actually happening in that small group in that room. It was so interesting. I mean, just Sarah, your kind of whole change of, you know, knowledge should be at the top to suddenly now it's at the bottom. Talk us through that and how you feel about that, having gone through it.
To me, I feel cold and embarrassed. Yeah, I feel really annoyed that my idea didn't win. No, I think that was really good, because you know, you give it a go, and then actually when people say things, you think, actually no, that's a really good point. It isn't about that. It was originally, but it isn't really what we're here for. So I thought that was good feedback.
But at the same time, I mean, how many, and this is to everybody too, how many opportunities do you get to sit down and think about this, about what the purpose of school is? Ed shaking his head. No.
Not many opportunities, no. I was just listening to the turmoil outside as one of our clubs gets returned to parents after 55 minutes on top of the end of the school day. It's a very busy environment, isn't it? So the time to actually stop and reflect is precious.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do it, was to carve out the time for you to be talking about this. And it may be something that'll just percolate with you as you go away from today, and it might be something that you might want to do individually. I'm also I will share a Padlet link with you in a moment too, and on that Padlet link are the instructions to this whole activity, because it is an interesting thing to do with colleagues and staff in school, because, as I said before introducing the activity, it starts to open up the thinking about why we need creativity before we can even think about what is it. Because if we look at your Diamond 9 here about, you know, you've got to develop a love of learning in young people at the top, at the very top. And I know we would definitely, and I know Sarah and Gary would too, say that, you know, creativity is a thread that needs to be woven through learning. When you've got that, then you've got, you're on your way to creating that love of learning. Or wonder, curiosity, taking children out of their comfort zone. That's exactly, hopefully, what we've modelled today, because that's, you know, absolutely key. And modelling that as teachers and also leaders is really key. So you can see why we're starting to bring in creativity, but only at this point by starting to think about, well, what's the point of what we do day in, day out? Now I'm going to ask Sarah to come in here, and I'm going to stop sharing so that we can see Sarah properly. So Sarah, I'd really like to know your thoughts about this, and particularly your motivation at Penryn for starting work on creativity collaboratives, and particularly your focus on industry, because this must have come from you thinking about the purpose of school.
Yeah, it really did. And that had come from industry and conversations we had. And actually, we were developing Key Stage 3 curriculum at the time. And we were having these conversations with just local industry partners to try and write actually a new STEAM curriculum, as it was at the time. And they kept saying to us, well, think about what they're going to enter the world in. You know, what is it you want them to be able to do? And the language they were using wasn't about knowledge. It was about the fact that they needed to be adaptable, and they needed to not be academically siloed. They needed to be excited to continually learn and do that in conversation with other people and work in teams. And it was very much around things we knew for us was that moral imperative, but to hear it from those people who just then wanted a young and excited workforce to join them when they left us was really a moment where we went, oh, actually, what is our purpose of school? What are we doing? And what does our curriculum and our teaching and learning need to look like to facilitate young people to just leave us and thrive? And that's what we all want, isn't it? We want our young people to move on whatever phase they're moving from and thrive and be excited about that next bit.
Thanks, Sarah. And just thinking about, you know, your purpose of school, looking at this Diamond 9 and thinking about, okay, so whatever you individually or as colleagues in your school come up with as your Diamond 9 and the purpose of school, then you're having to think about that leadership piece and leading this work. And that takes creative leadership. It takes a kind of courageous leadership, or as I know a lot of our colleagues would talk about, is actually just confident leadership. But I don't know, how do you interpret that? I mean, what does, you know, when you think about the purpose of your school or your collaborative, where does creativity fit in for you as a leader?
But for me as a leader, ultimately it was going to take us through a time of change, and we're still in that time of change. And that was about not just inspiring others, but really taking time to think and to reflect, which is really important in terms of what we were talking about. You know, we wanted to create a culture where we were talking a lot more, and we were working in teams a lot more, and we were able to develop young people who were asking lots more questions, and staff who were asking lots more. And once you start to think about what that fosters within a classroom, irrespective of the subject we were talking about and the language we were using in it, it just started to unravel. And for me, it was ensuring that as a leader, I was really getting staff to think about that and where that starting place was for them. And therefore, actually, just took time, and it's a really important piece to think about. And this Diamond 9 is such a good reflection of that, isn't it?
And you've just mentioned the T word there, time. And that's really interesting, because I'm also really conscious about when we do this piece of work, it kind of makes people think, oh gosh, yeah, okay, we've had time now to think about the purpose of school. But this now suddenly feels quite overwhelming. But actually, if we just draw this back and just remind everybody that this is your 5th year of doing this work, and if you go back to the start, I mean, in one sentence, how did you really put one foot in front of the other? What's the kind of starting point?
It's got to just be the smallest thing that feels really purposeful, and what you know, that gut feeling we always have, that will just start the journey. And for some of our schools, it was really simple to talk around dialogue and ensuring there was more talk. That could be taught within staff meetings, that could be taught within classrooms. It's got to be something that you know from your staff and your young people right now that's really small, but then it grows. We were never going to chuck everything up in the air and start again. That was not what we did. Our challenge was about looking at how you do this within the systems that we have. And that's just about small incremental changes and really discovering there's some amazing stuff we're already doing, and it's fostering that within our spaces that we're in.
That's a really good point to end on, Sarah, just reiterating the point that this is stuff that I know is happening in every one of your schools, in every one of your classrooms, but it's actually just noticing it so that you can build on it. And as Sarah said, just doing more of that stuff, but you can only do that once you've really noticed it and focused in on one area at a time. I know our time is coming to an end. I think I saw Andrea sharing the Padlet, so thank you, Andrea. So you've got that, and we'll add some more things to that too over these sessions that we're working together. I hope you can join us next time. I'm going to pass over to Lucy.
Lovely, thank you, Nia, and thank you, Nia, Dee, Andrea, Gary, Sarah, for joining us this afternoon. And you know, I've missed the discussion around the rooms and I couldn't get myself in, but just watching all of those ideas coming onto the board and then being moved off, and as you say, some of that thinking which you're thinking is at the top actually being at the bottom, and just having the opportunity to be creative and use your mind in a different way. I hope it's been a really good start to being able to be creative in leadership in school, and lovely to hear Sarah's examples and how, yes, you know, nearly 5 years on, it's taken a while to embed, but it does create change. So thank you all for joining, and we look forward to seeing you next time. You should